Hello, and welcome to another live drawing party. I'm Danny Gregory. It is Friday, April 17th. I see that you guys have been discussing the weather, so that's good. Probably the most important piece of news that we could share. It is spring. Spring, of course, is an unpredictable time. I think, if I vaguely remember what it used to be like in New York City, it was, it's a time of rain, it's a time of cherry blossoms. It's a time of hopefulness, but that's only a distant memory for me because I've been here in Phoenix, Arizona for the past month. I should start counting out the days like they used to do in the hostage crisis. Remember? 179 days, whatever it was. So, yes, I'm here hostage in the beautiful sunshine of Phoenix, Arizona. Today is Friday, and this new tradition that we are establishing is that Friday is our day for drawing self portraits, selfies in whatever media you want to use. Don't tell me you can't draw yourself. Don't tell me you don't like how you look. Don't tell me you can't draw people. Do it. This is not a beauty contest. It is a document of who you are at this moment, how you see you at this moment. It's not about drawing skills. It's not going to be framed. You needn't show it to anybody. In fact, when we're done, if you'd like, you can crumple it up and throw it away. But you will learn something in the process. So we're going to get to that in a second. Um, so think about that. All right? Think about it. While I tell you about a revelation I had at 3 o'clock this morning. So, Phoenix, particularly the part of it that I live in now, is had a lot of orange groves, citrus groves, orange, lemons, limes, grapefruits. In fact, our backyard was part of that. It used to be a citrus grove. And all around Phoenix, you'll see these old, kind of gnarled, beautiful orange and grapefruit trees. Um, really old, and like they've been, cut back many times. They have paint on them, white paint at the base of the trunk for some reason. I'm not sure what that's about, but I'm sure somebody can tell me. And every time that I've come here, and I've been coming here for a decade or so, in the time that I've been with my wife Jenny and visiting her family, her mom and her brother and her sister, um, they would always talk about irrigation. That there was like this big thing, irrigation. And Jenny told me, we're getting irrigation. It's going to happen on Thursday. And I was like, okay. I mean, they're going to water the lawn. Like, what is it? Well, at 3 o'clock in the morning, I woke up to the sound of gushing water, and this is what it looked like this morning. So that's the front yard. That's the backyard. And I realized that like we've seen this kind of thing before when we've walked around. They're like suddenly people have their front lawn has ducks swimming in it, like it's like a pond. So apparently that's the thing. So yes, if like once a month or so, they completely flood, and it's all timed anyway. So I'm learning about what it's like to live here in Phoenix. It's weird living in this new house. It is different. It's not a new house. It's I think it was built in the 30s or the 40s, and it's been redone. It has this um, wooden ceiling that sometimes you can see in the living room. I'll show it to you sometime. And it creaks and pops and groans. The wood expands and contracts in the middle of the night. We'll hear like groaning and noises like that as it expands and settles. So that's interesting. Like ghosts of strange things. What else? This house also has a lot of mysteries to it about how it works. Because what happened is we got this house really spontaneously. We had to stop living with my sister-in-law, my brother-in-law. Not that they're very nice people, which they are, but you know the saying about fish and guests. So I said to Jenny, like, maybe we have to look and see if we can rent a house because I don't know if we can stay here indefinitely. We don't know how long we'll be here. So we're sleeping on like a twin bed in the back bedroom surrounded by shoe boxes and got to do something else. So, yeah. So she found this place like amazingly fast. And she has a knack for finding real estate, my wife. And we came out here, we looked at it with this guy who owned it, of course, maintaining distance, feeling kind of anxious, like, oh, we're in this place. And then we decided to take it, and like 2 days later, we were here. And he said, look, I'm the landlord, but I don't really know this house very well because I own a bunch of houses. And there's a handyman who kind of looks after it sometimes, but um, I don't know if you want him coming here yet. And we were like, no, just basically give us the keys and leave. And he was very nice about it, and he did. But then we were like, well, there's a million things here we don't understand. Like there are lights we don't know how to turn on. There are strange uh, machines that do things we don't understand. There's just a lot of mystery to it. We sort of figured out some of it, but we can't wait, frankly, until we can have this handyman come and just look at stuff. Anyway, that's the least of our problems, right? The least of it, but it is weird. It's weird being in this completely strange place at a completely strange time. But it's not terrible. It's not terrible. So one of the things, so I'm going to show you a little film that I made. This is one of the first drawing films I made, like, I don't know, 15 years ago maybe. I just had gotten, do you remember there were these cameras that were called flips? It's like a little tiny camera. It was like the first like really tiny digital camera. And so I made this film just as an experiment, just like, let me just quickly see what it's like to do a drawing and film myself and make it. So I'll just show you this. I don't know how instructional it's going to be, but it's me drawing a self-portrait. Today we're doing self-portraits. So if you're stuck, maybe this will teach you something. Maybe you'll say, yeah, that sucked. But anyway, back to the problem at hand. I was juicier in those days, wasn't I? I'm more like a desiccated old pomegranate now. I was like a plump little porker with a Sharpie. So let's draw some more. Let me show you. I've been drawing a few things this week, drawing a few selfies. Show you a few of them. Hold on a second, let me just adjust this. There's a sort of more wizened looking one, sort of 100-yard stare. Kind of more horrified one, made with a photo of a slice of New York City wall, I believe. I like layering these textures on top of me. I like that one, sort of. What do you guys think? Yeah, so this is on a shopping bag. I like that one too. So this is when I started this morning while I was waiting to talk to you. I think I'm going to continue working on it. Maybe. Maybe it's done. Then I'll do another one. I'll do another one. So yeah, let's get to it. Hope you are in the mood to draw yourself. I'm just looking at my image in the little window. See what I look like today. You know, here's a thought that has occurred to me recently. I'll tell you about it while I do this. I've been a hypochondriac for as long as I can remember. It's an inherited condition. Um, my mother is also a hypochondriac, and hypochondria is somewhat in remission these days. Well, that's not actually entirely true. Of course, we're living in a time when we are all thinking about our health. In fact, I remember reading somewhere that the first the medical professionals are just saying like the first wave of people who first came into emergency rooms and so forth, they have a term for them that are like basically people who are like hypochondriacs, the very first people to show up. Yep, I probably got it. I've got everything. It's probably me. So one of the things about I read a book once about hypochondria because I thought like, isn't it a fairly common thing? Like, shouldn't there be lots of books and things telling you about how to deal with it? And the book referred to it as woeful imaginings. It's such a poetic sort of term, woeful imaginings. I think it's cool. I like that, woeful imaginings. And this book, despite its topic, I mean, it didn't seem to have a lot of sympathy for hypochondriacs. Sort of see, I think a lot of doctors see hypochondriacs as just like, they're so annoying. So annoying. They take up so much time and they're like constantly crying wolf and gumming up the system. They're like people who call in false alarms, fire stations and stuff probably. But if you are a hypochondriac, because you're always having to deal with stuff. And I think there are hypochondriacs who always go to the doctor, and then there are hypochondriacs who are afraid to go to the doctor. And the hypochondriacs who go to the doctor are always imagining there's some terrible thing wrong with them, and doctors are always running tests, and they have lots of different doctors they go to because if the one doctor doesn't agree with them, there's something wrong, then they'll find somebody else who will. That whole sequence of events. But they said that in this book, they said that basically the cure for hypochondria, you listening closely? Maybe you don't care, maybe you're not a hypochondriac, you just think it's silly. But the cure, this book said, for hypochondria is to have something actually go terribly wrong with you. It's kind of a grim prescription, but basically that was the idea was like, yeah, get something actually wrong with you, and then you'll shut up about all your nonsense. I used to do these diagrams where I drew like all the different parts of my body and all the things that I felt were wrong with them. You know, my grandfather and my grandmother were both doctors, and when my mother and I have discussed it, we've sort of blamed them for it. It's like you grow up in a house of doctors, and I did live with them for a while when I was a kid. You just are surrounded by it all the time. You're like, oh yeah, anything can go wrong with your body. But what I was wondering about in this day and age, do we have less of it? Are you feeling like more like, oh, whatever, who knows? Everything's going wrong. Maybe this is it too, but I'm not going to worry about it so much. Or, I mean, they do say that people are going to the hospitals a lot less for other things besides coronavirus. It's a bit of concern, but they're saying like, oh, they're having fewer people with heart attacks. And it's not, of course, that there are fewer people with heart attacks. It's more, I don't know, people aren't bothering, people aren't worrying, people aren't noticing. Anyway, so for those of you just joining me today, I'm not really talking about hypochondria. That wasn't really my point. My point was to say, have our concerns changed now that we have a real concern? It's kind of like, yeah, now maybe we're listening to the earth. Maybe we're actually listening to our health, our bodies. Maybe all that's changing because we're actually, we actually got something to, I'll give you something to cry about. Maybe that's what's going on, is uh, we're actually paying attention to the real things that matters instead of, you know, whinging about other things. I don't know. Is that harsh or is it true? I mean, are we worrying more about the world in general and being less, or are we thinking about what we can do about it? I don't know, you know. And I don't mean about the world in general. Maybe let me take that back. I think my interest is always with the inner critic, this voice in our head that kind of is telling us what it thinks is wrong. Has it changed for you? Has that voice changed its note? Is it talking less? Is it leaving you alone and saying, you know what, I can't be bothered to tell you how awful you are because there are other things to worry about right now? So maybe that's a good thing, right? Maybe that's a good thing that we are less concerned about those things, those things that we make up, and that instead we can focus on the things that actually matter. Not all, I mean, a lot of bad, but maybe not all bad. Maybe there are some good things that are happening now. I think that there are. I mean, I don't think I'm the first person to say this, but I think we're paying attention to actual problems that need to get solved, and maybe that's a good thing that's going to come of all this. Maybe we're less divided as a species. Um, but that was just my thought. Is that maybe we're actually going to apply our creativity to solving problems instead of beating ourselves up. We creative people, people who, you know, tend to give ourselves a hard time because we can think of things. Um, Another thing I've also been thinking about is trying to avoid, consuming too much media, and I think that that's probably for the good. But I am still finding things to read. Um, they kind of intrude. You can't help it. Like suddenly notification, blankety blank, and just thinking, a lot of them are scary. And every so often I'll read something that's like really scary and depressing. But then I also find things that are kind of hopeful and interesting. Oh, maybe this is going to end in some minor way soon. Maybe it's going to lift a little bit. Maybe things are going to change. Maybe there's some progress. Maybe they're finding solutions. Um, or maybe I'm just deluded. And I was thinking, like, is it okay? Because when I find something that makes me hopeful, I feel better for a little while. And I thought, is that a is that a bad thing? Is it a bad thing to be deluded? Is it a bad thing to live in denial if there's not really much you can do about it? That maybe it's okay if for an afternoon you go like, yeah, I saw this article that said they're making this kind of progress or that kind of progress. So, that's actually good news. Maybe I can have some good news. Maybe I'm allowed. I don't know. What do you think? Is that nonsense? Or is it clutching at straws? Yeah. There's a fine line between hope and delusion, says Thistle. Yeah, I mean, I think if you're deluded, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is I think that a lot of this, we can't do anything about either way. It's like a panacea. Is that the term? Yeah. It's just something that makes you feel like, okay, that's good. I mean, honestly, isn't that what like drinking is? Doesn't drinking just kind of make you feel better briefly, as long as you don't overdo it? So maybe information can function that way too. But let me get back to what I think is a better solution, right? Let me say this. I was talking to my pal Felix Scheinberger a couple days ago. Felix said a really interesting thing that I think bears thinking about. He said that the reason that he likes to sketch and draw is because it's how he comes up with ideas. He said that he um, doesn't have ideas just pop fully formed, pop out of the ether fully formed. Like they don't just suddenly appear, like suddenly he has an idea and it's like ready to go. He said that a lot of times he needs to think about his ideas and he needs to explore them, uncover them, and that when he's drawing, when he's sketching, that's how those ideas emerge. And I don't know if he meant specifically ideas that have to do with the sketch that he's doing. I think he meant in a more general sense that like as he's thinking, as he's contemplating, then suddenly clarity comes. And what we were also talking about was the history of we were talking about specifically urban sketching, but the idea was the history of how we draw what we see. And he said that when you think about what we consider realist artists, we were talking specifically about like 19th century um, sort of people who are plein air painters or people who are painting, you know, nature. Caspar David Friedrich was one of the people we were talking about. And he said, those guys use the techniques of realism to paint fantasy. But what they were painting, they were basically making up landscapes that looked beautiful. But those landscapes were created in their imaginations. And at the time, this is the mid to late 19th century, at the time of the industrial age really taking off, and life in the cities seemed to become uglier and more out of control, and people were romanticizing nature because they needed to think that there was beauty out there that was being preserved, and that there was this kind of ideal of beauty. And so they were creating these images, but a lot of times those images were really made up. And the reason that they were powerful was because they used the techniques of realism to paint fantasy, right? But people took it as realism. So they thought this is what is actually out there because it looks so real, right? But now we have photography. We can take photographs of things, and those become the things that are real. Like we take a photograph of nature, and we say, that's real. That's really what nature is. So we don't need art to do that because photography can capture nature. So we've gone from art that appeared to document reality to art that didn't actually document reality but was an illusion, to photography that did document reality, to now photography that we don't trust. A lot of times we don't trust photography anymore. We think it's an illusion because of Photoshop and so forth. So photography isn't as trustworthy anymore. But art can be more trustworthy. An artist, the person standing behind the image that he's creating, even though he's not trying to capture photographic realism, he is capturing the feeling, the emotion, the higher truth behind what he's looking at. You see? I know this sounds really heady, but I think it's interesting because it's saying that a drawing or a painting cannot look really like what it's depicting and yet be much truer than a photograph with Instagram filters on it that's heightening the reality. And so in a way, artists become more important now than ever to represent truth, because to be trustworthy and to stand behind the images, because I think that's another thing is we look at an image that we see and we think, where did this come from? Who made it? I don't even know. But maybe with a piece of art, we do understand that more. So we're kind of going back to like the most important function of art, which is to convey emotion, truth, and insight, right? To communicate these larger ideas rather than just simply representing quote unquote reality. Anyway, I'm blathering. I apologize, but these are the things that I've enjoyed thinking about this week. do you think? I think in there somewhere. So anyway, um, so thinking about fantasy, illusion, so much of what we know about the situation we're in now, we know is in quotes because we don't know. Nobody knows, and so maybe the illusions that we create for ourselves are as valid. I don't know. They make us feel better. Um, we are in the matrix. We don't know what is reality right now. We certainly don't know what the future of reality is. But as I've said to you several times here, the reality of our present moment is something that we can explore and understand through drawing. And that's why I think making self portraits every week is helpful. So, yes, that's all I have to say. Yeah, so here's another drawing of me that I wasn't really thinking about while I made it, but I kind of look like I'm staring off into space, which is sort of interesting. I guess that's what I was doing while I was talking. So, so I'm just looking at some of the things that you're writing here. So excuse me if I'm pausing for a minute. PJ says, I think drawing gives your rational mind something to do, and then your feeling state has an opportunity to express and break through. Kind of a left brain, right brain sort of thing. Yes. So you're drawing the actual physical act of choosing your materials, cross hatching, those kinds of things, engage a certain part of your brain. And maybe it allows your emotional state to come through because it's not being suppressed by your rational part. Maybe that's how it works. Or maybe if you're just not trying so hard to make it look real, maybe it'll just become something else. So you never know. Did I do the painting behind me? No. In fact, Morgan pointed out to me that whoever furnished this place for us to live in probably bought this at IKEA. She said, I think that looks familiar. I think it's from IKEA. I kind of like it. Eventually, I will get my own art here. Not my own art, but the art that I own. My owned art will come. Will eventually we'll be able to go back to New York. I don't know. I just been thinking about, you know, I mean, my wife thinks that we might be here for a really long time. I don't know that it may not be safe to go back to our apartment in New York for a while. That when we do, it won't be recognizable. I don't know. I'm not thinking about that stuff. I'm trying to think more about like this is quite nice. It's springtime. Birds are really crazy. Last night, this hummingbird was behaving very bizarrely. The quail family are really energetically running back and forth across the yard. Um, I've seen some monarch butterflies, which they seem early to me. I think of monarch butterflies as being here in September, but then I realized no, they're in New York in September. That they're coming here because they migrate to the the mountains in Mexico, and so they're not far from Mexico being here. So that's interesting. It's like yeah, it's different, a different kind of schedule that nature is on here for me. New, trying to notice those things. So. Stefan says, I think the more relaxed I am, the better I draw, and the better I draw, the more relaxed I feel. I like that idea. It's true. It's true. When you let go, when you're gripping your pen, you're like, oh my God, this is awful. I have no talent. I suck. Why am I doing this? Guess what? You're probably going to be not that great at it, or you're not going to like the results. But if you go, you know what? Let's just see what happens. Let's just see what comes out. Could be anything. Then, it does. So. Jesus asks me, how does doing self portraits in particular help? Well, I think I talked about this earlier, but let me talk about it again. It's a record of who I am right now, a record of what I look like, of course, but also who I am as I'm making it and what I see in me. It's a record. It's also the easiest thing to draw because I'm here. My wife kind of will tolerate me drawing her, but she doesn't really love it necessarily. So, yeah. But I think it's a good thing to draw the same thing as you change. It kind of remains the same, but you do it differently. So your abilities might change, your perspective might change, your emotions might change, your tools might change. You look kind of more or less the same, and yet the art is different. So there you're seeing how it's different. All that's true. Um, what else? Dana says it's been a while since she's attempted a photo, not a drawing portrait, not from a photo. Yeah, well, I mean, look, you can get photos of anybody, but you're the only person who's going to look back at you in the mirror. So use this as a unique opportunity to draw three-dimensional faces, which is a great skill to have. Copying yourself from a photograph, it's kind of weird because you captured yourself in the moment of the photograph, and then now you're drawing that photograph. It's not quite the same as the engagement that you might have with yourself at this moment looking at yourself. Now I just drew me looking at myself on this computer screen using this camera that I'm looking at to show me. So it was a bit photographic, but I was alive and I was moving. But I mean, I think drawing from a mirror is a different kind of experience. But you could also use a photo as just a sort of a loose reminder, like, oh yeah, I have, my hair looks kind of like that, or oh, that's what my glasses are like. But not necessarily to copy the photo, but just to say like, oh yeah, my nose looks like that from that angle. Those kinds of things. You could use photos for that. I think that's I think more useful. Um, all right, I've probably alienated a lot of you. I see people are leaving in droves, which is fine. Keep working on your self portraits. It's a fun thing to do every week. And next week we'll do all kinds of new and exciting things. It will be fun, and hopefully we will learn some new stuff together. I have a few ideas. You guys have given me lots of other ideas. Keep sending them to me. And just in the interests of reminding you of a couple things. So one is if you do a drawing that you want to share, please hashtag SBS Drawing Party and put it on social media, Facebook, Instagram, or the schoolyard, Sketchbook schoolyard. And secondly, I have been, in fact, today is the first day. In fact, right now, we sent out the first email essay that I'm writing for what we're calling Danny's List, for lack of anything better to call it. So if you would like to get ideas from me, essays, just stuff I'm thinking of that I'm writing down and emailing to you, sign up for it. Go to sketchbookskool.com/Danny's-list. So it's HTTPS, I think it is, :/ Sketchbook. But I've also put it down in the show notes below here, so you can get it there. But sign up, and I'll send you some stuff. Why not? I'm making it. Got to get rid of it somehow. So there you go. Yes, a couple of you have gotten it. Excellent. Yes, I think they just sent it out. Here it is in more comprehensive form. Morgan, I should just be putting that URL there instead of this one that apparently some people get confused by. So yes, in the future, it will say this. It will say this instead of that. Okay. I feel like I was a little moribund today, but it's the weekend. I'm going to chill out, and next week will be amazing. Fantastic. We're going to have so much fun. Make sure you have a weekend, by the way. Try and distinguish between week and weekend. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. Don't just like flow into, yet another day of Netflix binging and, cocktail sipping. But try and say like, oh, I'm going to make this different. It helps me. I say, okay, I'm not doing this stuff on the weekend, and save it for Monday. So one of the things is you. I'll see you. I don't see you on the weekend. I'm taking the weekend off from you, or more importantly, you're taking the weekend off from me. But hopefully, I'll see you at noon Eastern Standard Time on Monday, same place, Facebook, YouTube, wherever it is, and we'll make something else together. Okay? Thanks very much. Have a wonderful weekend. See you on Monday.